Yeah, what up, YouTube? It's your boy Zai. You already know what time it is, man. And I know I haven't been on YouTube in a minute because I just been basically working, doing the whole Paul Blart thing. And it's funny because even at one time, like when I first start working at other sites, I've kind of felt a little bit, you know, I don't even know how to describe it. Not ashamed because money is always a major motivator to me, and the simple fact that it allows me to do a lot of stuff that I normally couldn't do, especially being an ex-con. But it took me a second to come to terms with it, for people to walk up to me and be like, officer, and all this. Like, that used to throw me off, and I would tell people, like, don't call me officer, I'm not an officer, you know what I mean? But then I had to realize, like, hey, these, you're dealing with Caucasians that ain't, they don't really, so I had to learn to be a lot different, which it was easy, you know what I mean? I've did it before when I had to switch up from uh using so much, I had to pull back from using so much vocabulary when I'm dealing with a lot of individuals, because they're unable to not only understand it, but they felt as if I was belittling them. And that's besides the point. The whole reason I'm making this video is not to, I'm back on YouTube. I mean, I still got things planned, but right now, like, I'm working for something else. Like, you know what I'm saying? But shout out to Haters World for having me on. I don't care what nobody say. At the end of the day, dog, they treated me with respect, and they were respectful even with their questions. And I told them they can go deep in certain things that if it wasn't to my liking, I would just ignore it. You know what I mean? So they could have went deep, but they chose not to. But that's besides the point. The whole reason I'm making this video is because I had to have a conversation with one of the homies, and I always like to sit down and pick this dude's brain, or he likes to pick my brain with certain subjects. And a lot of times he'll come with things that are controversial as far as like what we're talking about. And the homie is one of those. I don't know how to say it. I mean, I know how to say it, but it's constantly slipping my brain. But he's like progressive, like real progressive in his thinking, the way he lives his life. He's been like that since he was young. But we had this conversation, the whole North and South thing. And I think he was telling me about, he had seen an interview with Marvelous, the dude from Maravilla on Tony A show. Hindu was talking about bloodlines and North and South uniting, and how certain narratives were put there just because of CDC and all this. I never paid attention to that interview because I don't have nothing against that channel, but I've never watched it. You know what I mean? For the most part, it wasn't my type of vibe. But I know it got some good content from what I heard, but I never paid attention to it. Now, the whole reason I'm bringing this up is because a homie, like I said, being a progressive, he was like, yeah, the whole North and South united would be perfect. But then I asked him, okay, what would be so perfect about the unity on the streets of between North and South? And he's like, oh, we would be stronger. Okay, so I'm like, okay, so you would be stronger, but in what way? You would be united as a people. But the last time I looked, most of the homies from Barros that trip off that whole North and South thing. I mean, you got fools that had never jumped off the porch that trip off that too, but to me they're irrelevant. Like, you either involved in it or you're not. So I asked him, so what would be the benefits? And he was like, okay, it would be strength in numbers, but and then he's like, well, and we would have real power. I'm like, okay, what would the power be? I mean, as far as street and the numbers being Hispanic, like, yeah, you would have that. But what else? He was like, what you mean, what else? I'm like, well, what else? What type of power would you hold? Would it be political power? Because we know most homies that are involved in this game ain't really tripping on politics, and the ones that really talk about it don't necessarily take part in it. I know a lot of people that can delve deep into politics, but have never went and voted, not one time. They always say it's the same excuse. Oh, well, they're all the same. They're all this. But yeah, there's a lesser of two evils. You choose whatever side you feel you you agree with the most. They both could be bullshit, but who do you agree with the most? Who, when you do your uh, part, who do you know what I'm saying? Like, so after picking his brain for about an hour, that's all he could come up with was the numbers. You already have the numbers. The South is the most divided car on the streets because we go at it with each other, but we still got the numbers. If it was just to and not even on a race thing, but just the whole South card. Like the number is so great in Los Angeles. But outside of that, what else? So if the South was to click up with the North, what would happen? Most homies are ex-cons. Most homies got long rap sheets, and most of them don't give two about politics. So it's not, your power wouldn't help you that much, because it's not gonna help you go further in helping somebody pursue a political career, because you're all cons. You know what I'm saying? You're all convicts. So it's unless they change something up. Last time you're a convict, you're not gonna be able to participate in that way. So only thing I can see is it would just turn your angst towards somebody else. Because if you're not going at it with each other, you would just go at it with somebody else, which your ire would most likely be on a certain community, because that seems to be the going sentiment of a lot of fools that, did something happen, it's like, oh, it has to be one of them. Like, I hear it all the time in the fools pages. Like, I hear it, like, and I laugh at it sometimes, because I'm like, if the sentiments are that strong, you walk by fools every day on the street but do nothing. And a lot of times it's not even the fools that are actually with it on the street that are actually saying anything, because for the most part, we know if you're going to do anything, you're just going to go do it. You're not going to pump nobody up to go do it. You're just going to go do it yourself. There's enough of us out here to really cause real damage, and people know that. But the whole reason I brought this video up is because when you think about things of that nature, as far as like coming together outside of all the killings that have taken place between all our cars, first you should be trying to solidify the South. If you cannot unite the South, you will never unite the North and the South on the streets. It will just not happen. And then you got to take into consideration that a lot of homies from the South that are down here don't really trip up on the North, except if we've bumped heads with them, and some really don't trip on them, period. But you also got to understand that there's homies still up there that are unaliving fools left and right. I can tell you where the front line starts and where it ends. So you got these fools fighting our enemies on the front line, and those are still talking about unity. But when, like I said, when I talk to this homie and I talk to a lot of other dudes, the unity only goes so far. It's like, oh, we would increase the numbers, we could take over everything. That's a lie. Politically, you can't. Why? Because not everybody is going to throw their backing behind who they feel should be in office. They're not going to do it. A lot of people would rather vote in like a Gava or something like that than to vote in their own people. Why? Because it's the mistrust. They don't trust their own. They don't feel like, it's like buying clothes. Like, it's like if your gente came up with some clothes right now, it can be anything, and it may look good. You would rather go spend your money over here at Frisco Benz and all this, or Levi's, when you can buy them same looking jeans from your people over here, or this shirt from over here. You rather skip this little business and go over here and buy it in the mall because it makes you look better. Or instead of just keeping it a certain way, you would rather go over here and use a certain dialect because it makes you look more different. You know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of people say that about me. Like, not a lot of people, but there's a few people that say like, oh, fake accent. It's not an accent. It's just somebody that grew up the way I grew up, and that's why I talk the way I talk. Plain and simple. For the people that have been knowing me forever, this is how I've been talking. That's besides the fact. But those are some of the things you got to take into consideration and into context. What are you going to do with that type of power? But aim it at another race. You're not going to go and try to achieve anything politically, because the whole North and South thing is between gangs. It ain't got nothing to do with civilized people and people that don't take part in those particular activities. Then it's like, okay, well, what else is that going to bring? Like, music. I heard somebody say that. Let's play with that. You go into music, you can't dominate it, because at the end of the day, you still got to be able to sell a lot of records. Why people try to sit and impress certain people, what they need to be trying to impress is the people that's above them. They're not even above them, way beyond them. You have to convince the people that have put them on that you're more viable as an artist than the people that they already got in place. Right now, you can't name me one fool that can remove Drake from his spot out of the homies. You just can't do it. And people get like, oh, well, there's fools over here and there's fools. Yeah, there's fools in other countries. Like there's a fool in France. I can tell you his name, but it ain't gonna matter because you ain't even gonna search him up anyway. But he's bigger than Drake in half of Europe. Like in France, he's a king. You know what I mean? And he even turned Drake down when Drake wanted to. You know how Drake likes to go on like trends and like he had the UK accent, he had this accent. He tried to do it in France. The dude turned him down. You see what I'm saying? There's fools out there. K-pop got power. Like fools that do K-pop. But what I'm saying is, in order to seize a spot, like you can get your spot and you can get on. A lot of people can get on, but the point of the matter is you cannot take over an industry unless you're able to produce real numbers, not a million views, 2 million. No, they 80 million views, 30 million views. That's what they're looking for. The people that can do them. That's the money. That's the people that they're putting the money behind. It ain't even got nothing to do with the race. It's just who is more convincing. Like you got Lefty Gunplay. Lefty Gunplay is doing his thing. Can't knock him. But is it at the level of like all these other fools? No. Because he can't do it by himself. He needs other people to get up to that level. When you get a lot of people up to that level, that's when you start making real noise. Right now, it's local, or it's in LA, it's in Texas, it's in spots that have big populations of Hispanics. But if you go to like other spots, they're not bumping that. It is what it is. And no real label outside of just like the like major backing, they're not gonna do that. They're not gonna take Kendrick Lamar and remove him to put Lefty, even though Lefty is loved by a lot of people and hated, and he gets his numbers. But it's a vast difference, dog. Like, and in order to dethrone these fools, you need to put up real numbers. And if you can't put up real numbers, then they're not even going to listen to you. That's why when I laugh when I hear people say, oh, if we had the numbers. No, it doesn't matter. Numbers are not. And most of the fools that are rapping right now are emulating these fools. They're not even rapping like just regular. Like you got fools like Lefty Gunplay. He does his thing, but he don't say certain words. Whenever you move outside your character to emulate another fool in order to try to take hold of a job, it doesn't work. You know how they say emulating or whatever is the best. It's not in music. You might take a style and run with it, but to just emulate a person, like his whole dialogue, his jargon, everything, it's not gonna work. For one, your people are gonna downgrade you every chance they get because they don't want to hear that. And whether it's progressive as far as like showing that you're not really tripping, it doesn't work for them. So if your people don't back you, it's hard for another race to back you. Like you might get some fools like Osama and all these cats that be like, oh yeah, because they deal with Hispanic rappers. But for the vast majority, it's limited unless you got like a real bag. You know what I'm saying? Like that's just proven. But that's all I want to say, dog. Like, think about it. Instead of just putting it out there on the internet, North and South should be together. What's going to happen when they do come together, or if they ever come together? You cannot accomplish that without first bringing the South together. If you cannot solidify the South in a whole as just all in one, and nobody really tripping off the gangster, which I don't see that. LA is just the way it is. IE is just the way it is. San Diego just the way it is. It's just the way it is, dog. Motherfuckers got real hate for each other because fools that knocked each other off. So if you can't solidify the South, you will never solidify the North and South. It will never happen that way. There's a lot of bad blood and a lot of fools that be wanting to do things to each other. People are like, Zod, how dude, I've dealt with them, dude. I've beat them with knuckles and feet and toes. I've then went to it then went down a lot of times, dog. Like, so it's not like I'm any stranger to that. And I'm not even getting on here pushing no hate rhetoric. I'm just saying, like, if you're gonna put it out there that do the bloodlines and like solidifying would be a great thing, you got to come with what would occur after that come together, that when all sides come together, what would happen after that? What would you do after that? But they don't have nothing to say because that's all they can say. No, we would just be better as a people. How? Too much angst, too much bad blood, and even if you could get past the bad blood, there's too much angst. You would have to aim it at somebody, and then in turns, aiming at somebody would only cause more turmoil. So it would make it hard for you to just move and do what you want when you're constantly warring with all these fools. Like it's like that's all I'm gonna say, man. You already know Zod controversial as hell, but just think about it, dog. Before fools get on the internet and be talking about North and South coming together, think what would happen if it does and what would come out of it. Because if it's just coming together just to be kumbaya, but nothing's gonna happen, it just means we're all one big gang. Like, for one, I'm already too old, so I ain't tripping. But what would come out of it? You're just gonna be a gang of fools just hanging around each other, looking always apprehensive about the next because you don't know if you can really trust them. There's real blood been shed, and it's still being shed to this day. So you know, that's all I'm gonna say about that. But dog, you gotta make it make sense. Like, make it make sense, dog. Like, cause that, oh, we just should. I don't know. With that being said, I'm your boy Zod, and I'm out.